episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. You know the show where I virtually invite people into the blog cabin to chat about life or to chat about something that I think is pretty amazing, and it's their books. And this book is called Bethlehem Barn, and Deborah is here to talk about it. She's the author, and I will say, first of all, I love this book because it's told from the point of view of the animals, the farm animals, which I am a huge farm animal, and I love that the cow has a huge part in it. Deborah, welcome to the show. And before we get into talking about the book, tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. So I was born and raised in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I've lived there my whole life. I love to travel, but Rhode Island is home. I'm one of three girls, and we grew up around books. My dad was an English teacher, and both of my parents read to us, and I always loved reading and writing. I actually took the first, it was a male correspondence class, writing for children, when I was in high school. So it's something I've just always wanted to do. After college, I started a family. I have twin boys who are now grown. And I taught English language arts for almost 20 years. I taught all grade levels, but most of my career was spent at the middle school level. And when my boys finished college, I wanted to try something different. So I went into the nonprofit world for a couple of years. And then when the pandemic came along and, changed life for everybody, I now do grant writing as an independent contractor, which gives me more time to devote to writing creatively, which I'm super excited about.
Wow, you have lived a fulfilled life, and I will give you kudos for teaching middle school, because that has to be the hardest years to teach, because I have elementary school education, but the middle school education, woo, and I had three girls, so I totally
Girls are tough. I was relieved I had sons.
very tough.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Bethlehem Barn. It's such a cute idea. Where did you come up with it?
So, I was actually at a church service 10 or 12 years ago, and the minister mentioned the legend that inspired the story, which is that for 1 hour every year on Christmas Eve, animals are given the gift of speech. And I just immediately thought, I'd never heard of that legend before. And I just thought, what a great children's book idea. And at the same time, I was, I guess the best word to use is disheartened about how commercial Christmas has become. And, the to-do lists get 3 times longer. And, you're buying the presents, you're trying to clean the house, you're going to parties, and we get further and further away, it feels, from the true meaning of Christmas. And I wanted to get that back. And so I started playing with the idea of telling or retelling the Nativity story from the animal's point of view, and using that legend as, the starting point. So, I started playing with, what would the animals have said on that very first Christmas when they found, people are in their barn and there's something in cow's hay, and how would they have known who the baby was? And having worked as an educator and having been a mom to boys, and we read a lot, my sons and I, as they were growing up. I knew that the books kids like to read are the ones that make them laugh. The ones they want to read over and over again are the books that make them laugh. And so I worked really hard to find that balance between, the animals being quirky and funny, and then being filled with wonder and reverence when they realize who the baby is that's in cow's hay.
I really love the fact that each one of the the animals have a different personality that somebody can relate to somewhere. Like the bird is kind of like the know-it-all. Let me tell you what's going on and everything. Now it's like, wait a second, something's going on. Like he's not quite sure or she's not quite sure. The chicken is very the overprotective person. And it's just, I love that you put those personalities in it. And it shines through in the book.
And you know what? I think that that's something that both the adults and the kids like, that's important when you're reading a children's book, right? It has to appeal to both. And so I've had adults that read it and they start laughing like, yeah, I'm just like sheep. All I want is peace and quiet. And then when I read it to classrooms, I go to visit parochial school and Christian schools, and a lot of the kids are like, my aunt sounds like that, or that's just like this person. So it's fun.
So did you base any of these characters on any of the animals' personalities on anybody that you know in real life?
Not specifically, no, but I imagined character traits of people that I know, as well as myself. There's a little bit of me in all of those characters as well.
I love that little bit of you. You wouldn't give us one little thing about you, that one of the characters.
Oh, well, how Chicken gets a little frantic. I mean, that's me, and that's what I was trying to get away from when I started writing that story, is just that frantic feeling of like, where is this and what's going on, when we just need to, take a breath and appreciate what it's really supposed to be about.
I love that. Now, when you first started writing this book, how long did it take you to actually write it and suss out your traits for your animals, and which animals were you going to include as well?
That's a great question. I probably spent about a year working off and on the manuscript. I had an agent for it for a while, and we didn't have any luck selling it, but it went through a number of additional revisions during that process as well. I think I wanted to get some, the main animals in there, the cow, the donkey, sheep. I needed a bird because the bird had to visit other locations and have a better understanding of what was going on. And then a lot of people seem to be surprised that there's a chicken in there, but in my mind, there was just always a chicken at the nativity scene. So I wanted those animals, but I didn't want so many that a young reader would get confused at the number of characters as well, which is why the characters don't have names. They're just chicken and cow. And but yes, so after we didn't have success publishing it, it went into a draw for several years. And I was still writing occasionally, here and there. And then, when I took it out of my drawer again, I had a number of stories, and I just said, this is the one I would really like to see something happen with. And so from that point, it was probably another year that I worked on it some more and worked with an illustrator, and we got it published.
I love that. I have a few questions about the illustrator, but right now we need to take a brief commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Joanna, and I would like to share with you a little bit about Shores of Grace, Shores Philly. It's a ministry located in Philadelphia. The portion of Shores that I volunteer for goes into Kensington, an area greatly impacted by homelessness and addiction. And we go and we take love, food, clothing, snacks, conversation. We believe that it is a way that we can meet people right where they are and show them the love of Jesus. We have seen lives changed in big ways and in small ways, and we have built wonderful relationships with the people in the community. We have big plans, more we'd like to do, and we would appreciate any support, either through prayer or through donation. If you would like to donate, you can go to shoresofgrace.com, and in the menu, click on Donate. And we just ask that you put Philly in your donation comments. Thank you.
And we are back chatting with Debra, who is the author of Bethlehem Barn, a cute little children's book. I absolutely love it. I think one of my favorite lines, I know we were going to talk about illustrator, but I wanted to talk about one of my favorite lines in the whole book, and is when they said they realized, as different as they were, their gifts worked together to protect and comfort the babe. I love that. You also, not only did you teach the story of the nativity of Jesus's birth, but you also put a little bit of like, okay, we need to get over our differences and start working together and to teach the kids a lesson.
Yeah, and that was really one of the things I hoped that kids would take away from it, is that sense of community and caring and giving, and as different as we all are, it all works together. And so that's one of the things when I do visit the classrooms that we spend quite a bit of time talking about is, I want them to transfer that, like, okay, what did each of the animals give to bring warmth and comfort to the baby Jesus in the story? And okay, and now what can you do to bring joy and comfort to somebody else? And we try to talk, they come, the kids are great, right? I mean, they have ideas that just, are just so wonderful, and they're so sincere. And I was at a school earlier this week, and the conversation started out, well, I'm going to buy a house for everybody, and I'm going to take all the homeless people to Disney World. It's like, okay, well, what can we do with what we have right now? What could you do when you leave this room to bring joy and comfort to somebody else? It doesn't involve money. It doesn't involve buying anything. And we try to talk about some of the people that they might encounter each day that might not get recognized for their contribution or their work. And imagine, if you gave the custodian or the crossing guard a card that said, thank you for keeping our school safe so we can learn, or thank you for helping us cross the street and keeping us safe, and just little things that can make a big difference.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm, like I said, I have the elementary education background. So anything that that helps teach character education is awesome in my part. Let's talk about the illustrator. How did you get up with your illustrator? Because the illustrations in this book are amazing. I absolutely love the illustrations.
They are amazing. I am so thrilled with them. So Marcin Piwowarski is the illustrator, and he lives in Poland. Several years ago, I had two stories published or purchased. One of them ended up being published by Highlights Children's Magazine, and they arranged the illustrator, and it happened to be him. So he and I had connected on social media, and I had followed him. I loved his artwork, and I knew that he had also illustrated a number of children's Bible stories and children's Bibles. And so I reached out to him to see if he'd be willing to work with me on this. And I knew he had an agent, but I reached directly out to him. I had no idea what to expect, and he read the manuscript and said yes, he wanted to work with me. So I was thrilled.
Wow, that must have taken a lot of courage to reach out directly instead of going through an agent, because sometimes people don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know really what I was doing, so I just figured the worst he could do is say contact my agent, or no. But I figured we had that connection through the Highlights, and so I went for it.
So you mentioned that you've written before. What other things have you written?
So the story that was published by Highlights Magazine is it's called Getting Even, and it's about friendship between girls that it was actually based on a childhood memory of a friend who wasn't a real good friend all the time. She was a great friend when it was just the two of us, and then when others were around, not so much. And so then when the main character has an opportunity to do the same thing to the friend, it doesn't feel as good as she thought it was going to. And so then she does the right thing. And, so it's more of that social emotional learning bit. So that was published by Highlights Magazine a few years ago, and then they purchased another story of mine, which never made it in the magazine. I believe is actually on a standardized reading test right now. That's yeah. So I tell kids when I visit school, when you take those tests someday, you might be reading another one of my stories.
Wow, you never know where it ends up. And I love the fact that even though you're not teaching anymore, you're still teaching through your writing.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? I mean, even when I left teaching and I was working in the nonprofit world, I was working still with kids, and I thought I was going to miss that, but this gives me enough contact that I still feel good about that.
I just love that. You said that you put the book in your drawer and just put it away for a while. What made you just put it away?
Well, that it had an agent. He had tried to sell it. At the time, we were told the market was inundated with Christmas stories. And I there are a lot of Christmas stories out there. I don't feel that there are as many that are about the true meaning of Christmas. And then, my story is lighthearted, which again, that's a little unique. But I wanted to reach kids. But we didn't have luck with it. And at the same time, I had gotten a promotion at work, and I just didn't have time to do both things and still do the family and home and everything else. And so that had to be put away. And the thing is, when I do put writing away, sometimes you just have to. Life gets in the way, right? Something has to be put to the side. But whenever I get back to it, it's always like, oh yeah, this makes me feel this good, And so I'm very fortunate that now I'm at a point where I can devote more time to it. I'm really grateful for that.
So when you pulled it, what made you pull it back out of the drawer and say, okay, I want to get it published now?
I mean, I think, COVID came, and the way that I feel, when I feel that things are out of my control, I need to clean and organize. I'm one of those people. And so I was just on a massive organization kick, and going through the drawers and a lot of paperwork, and then I started reading some of the stories that I had written, and it made me realize, how much I missed writing. And that was the story that I just said, I just really, I feel like it's needed now. I feel like, we need something to remind us of what the holiday is truly about. And then, the line that you said is your favorite line. That's one of mine also. And I just really love having the opportunity to talk to kids about those things.
So did you go through a conventional publisher, or did you self-publish? How did you decide what to do?
We went through a hybrid publisher. So they had, the editorial staff, and they had, different services that a self-publisher wouldn't, but you still do basically, your own marketing and your own promotion. So that was the route that we took. And yeah, I was happy with the product. And I'm working with an agent right now on a couple of other stories that I'm hoping we can go the traditional route for.
Oh wow! I would love to have you come back on when you do the other stories, if and when you do the traditional route, even if you don't do the traditional route because this is just like the cutest little thing ever, and I think it's important that children learn about major events through literature. Let's talk about the importance of children's literature now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like I said, I grew up around books. We never had any shortage of books in my house. It was one of the things my parents were willing to splurge on. Although I do remember my mother asking me to read slower because I would devour the books. But yeah, so in the classes that, I mean, I could, as a former educator, and I don't remember the numbers anymore. But the number of vocabulary words that a child that has been read to from birth to the time they enter kindergarten, and a child that hasn't, their vocabulary is something like hundreds of thousands of words richer. So that alone is so important. But for me, as a parent with twin boys who were very active, reading was that special time where they sat still and we were together. And just the memories of that are so important. And I feel that that's so needed today, every day. And I know that some parents are so busy, working multiple jobs and managing so many different things. But I do think that we need to do what we can to have that time. I have a friend who has nieces in another state, and she has a standing date with them where they call each other once a week on Zoom. And it started out that she would read to her nieces, and now that they're older, they read to each other. And there are ways around some of those barriers. And I just think that that's so important, that kids have that special close time and that they associate with love. um but then even beyond that, in some of the writing classes that I take, we talk about, we use a metaphor that books are mirrors and windows, right? So a book can be a mirror when we read it and we see ourselves, or our situation reflected in the characters and in the plot and the story. And hopefully we walk away with a greater understanding or greater appreciation of that. And then they can also be mirrors too. I mean, windows too. They can be windows into people who have different traditions and different cultures and different faiths and different, live in places we may never visit in our lifetimes. And, it can be a window to greater understanding and greater compassion and kindness. And I think that we need those things. And then they're a great conversation starter, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're having an issue with your child, maybe maybe they've told a lie, or maybe they're showing some little bullying behavior or whatever it might be. It can be difficult for them to have that conversation with you about their own behavior. But then if you're reading a book together, it's so much easier to talk about the character and what the character is doing, and why do you think he did this, and what else could he have done. And so for all of those reasons, I just think reading time and books are so important for children.
It was so funny you were talking about how the books, like if you're having a problem with your child and the books would bring that out. I was just watching an episode of When Calls the Heart yesterday, and the little boy had cried, told the little girl that there was a bear to get her into the schoolhouse, but there really wasn't a bear. And so the teacher read the boy who cried wolf, and ended up the boy coming back and telling them, I didn't see a bear, but it was the whole little thing around it, the way she worked it. It reminded me of that when you said that. I'm like, yeah, because there's a lot of kids that, like, they do have problems with lying. And then the little boy that cried wolf, and they're like, oh, wait a second. Things are starting to click in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just mentioned, you said the writing classes that you're taking. Are you still learning to your craft?
Yes, so I'm taking some amazing writing classes at the Writing Barn. They are located out of Austin, Texas, and I'm not sure how much they did online prior to the pandemic, but since then they've done a lot of online classes, and so I've taken several, and one of the most intensive ones they have is actually structured after an MFA program, a Master Fine Arts program. And there's people in Australia and New Zealand. There's people from all over in the classes, and they're taught by award-winning children's book authors. And it's just been a great experience.
Do you feel like it's helped you become a better writer, or do you feel like it's just like, okay, you get your creativity flows and you get an idea for another book or something?
Both. I think it has made me a stronger writer. I think it's helped me to understand the market better and the publishing, the business side of publishing. They really have classes that address like all different facets of writing. So yeah, I think it's the best money I've spent on writing, and I wish I had discovered them earlier.
Who knows how much further along you would have been? Maybe this book would not have sat in the drawer for a couple of years.
True. Yeah.
So take me through the first time you actually held your book, the printed copy, everything, the illustrations, everything all together in your hands. How did you feel?
Oh, I mean, there were a lot of feelings going on. I mean, it was partly like, wow, it's actually a book. The illustrations are amazing. And it was also like, okay, now I need to, if I want anyone to buy it, I need to get out there and out of my comfort zone, because I'm not that person usually. so it was really a mixture of feelings, and and it also happened, it came out late last year. It was, when all the shipments were delayed because of COVID, so it was a late start, so there was that mixed in with everything else. Excuse me. So it was a bit of a whirlwind, and then it sold a little bit more through, I did a lot on social media, because it came out on Amazon last year before I actually got my own order of books to sell. So I have, a lot of my teacher friends are connected to me on social media, so it still sold well. And then of course after Christmas, it died down. I did still make some sales. I have people that buy it for new baby gifts or baptism, which I just love that. I love that I've had some people buy it as a gift for a new grandparent, which I also love. I never thought that was going to be like a market, and a lot of people buy it for that reason. But then this fall has been really busy. So I kind of feel like this is the first real full season because of that delay last year. And in November, it received the Moonbeam Children's Book Award in the religion category. So there was a children's book fair in Michigan, and then an award ceremony. And it was really a wonderful event. And they have done a lot to help me get the word out, and do things like this with you, which I am so appreciative for. And so it's been really exciting.
I mean, once I saw what it was about, I was like, I have to have her on. And I know the schedule, my actual schedule wasn't where you could come on, but I was like, I will make a way for her to come on, because I think this is an important book, especially this time of year.
Yeah. Thank you. I am very grateful for that.
So let's talk about, you said earlier about the illustrator being in Poland. How often did you go back and forth? I know he had probably sent you a lot of things, a lot of pictures or details. How did you communicate with him?
So he spoke very good English, or very well, I guess I should say. um, he It was all entirely through email that we corresponded, and he sent me. So I sent him the manuscript before he agreed to it, and then he agreed, and then I sent him a book dummy. So basically it's a picture book is typically 32 pages, and so it just shows which words go on which pages, and then he created sketches, and they're really just sketches. And so he sent them to me. They looked wonderful, and then he puts the color in there. They're computer generated, from what I understand. And when he did the sketches, there were some minor things that I asked, can you do this or can you do that? And one of the examples, which I show the students when I go to the classroom, is I show them the sketch of the cover of the book, and then I show them the actual cover, and I say, not counting the colors and not counting that the title and our names are on there, what other thing is missing on the sketch that you see on the cover? And most of them see right away that the original sketch didn't have the star. And I had said to the kids, the star is in the Bible and the star was in my story. So I asked him if he would put the star in the picture too. And he did. So there was some back and forth for little things like that. But overall, like they were so good. He did such an amazing job, capturing the comedy of the animals at the beginning and then their reverence at the end. I love what he did with the illustrations.
I also love that you tell the story of the donkey when the donkey's like, hey, I carried them. I didn't know that I was carrying that. It's almost like you're like, you never know what may change somebody's life. So you need to continue on the path that you're supposed to be on.
Yeah, you have to do your best as often as you can, because we really never know the impact we have on other people. Sometimes we find out after the fact, and sometimes we never find out at all, and for positive or for negative. So that's something the kids have picked up on as well, which I'm thrilled. I think that takes some deep thinking for them to pick up on that.
Because to me, the donkey comes off like a little bit like ditzy. Okay, I read them on the back, but I don't know where they were going. I didn't know what they were doing. I was like, I don't know. But hey, I played a bigger part than what I thought I did.
Yeah, he's playful. He likes, which, I mean, that's how kids are, right? Like, can we keep him? Donkey wanted to know if he could keep the baby.
So, how was it received by your twin boys and your whole family when it came out and you actually had it? And I want to know, did you just say, hey, sit down and read this? Because I knew they knew you were working on the book, but when you actually showed them the actual finished product.
So my parents had read it before it went to the printer. My parents read it, and then because I wanted to be very I was cognizant of the fact that it's a light-hearted retelling of the Nativity story, and I really wanted to get the balance between kids enjoying the humor and wanting to read it over and over, and then the seriousness of, wow, this is the baby Jesus, and this, and having that wonder and that reverence. So I actually had a couple of minister friends of the family take a look at it as well. And of course, like my writing partners and, other people had as well, but I wanted their opinion before it went to print. So, some of my family had read it ahead of time. Yeah, and my sons are i- they're men of little words, we can say. So I know one of my sons has it on his coffee table, which that's important, that's special to me. um but yeah, so they've been super supportive, um and I appreciate that.
I just can imagine walking in and seeing on your son's coffee table, especially with a man, because you're like, why do you have this children's book on your coffee table, you know?
They're good kids. Yeah, well, they're good young men, I should say.
So you said you had a couple more stories in the work. Do you think you'll get them published in the next year or so, or it just depends on how your day job goes?
Well, I have an agent that is working on trying to sell one of them now. So, any good wishes and positive energy anybody wants to send would be greatly appreciated as it begins its travels across publishers' desks. And then we had another one that she had attempted to sell and didn't have luck. So the agents, they work with the larger publishers, and it's not really worth. I don't believe it's worth their time or their money to spend too much time going after small publishers. So there's a few small publishers that have that other manuscript now. And one of them asked for some changes, and I'm hoping when he sees the changes I've been working on, that goes in the direction that I really would love it to go. So just, yeah, keeping my fingers crossed and just keeping, I think that's one of the hard things about writing, and I think that's one of the reasons why the classes at the Writing Barn have been really helpful to me, is because it helps to realize that other writers have received 100 rejections before they finally got that yes. And prior to email, some people used to say they could wallpaper with the rejection letters they received, and it can be discouraging. But I think one of the things I've really gotten out of the classes at the Writing Barn is thinking about why is it that each student wants to write. And I already talked about how important I think children's literature is, and I think it does have great power. I think it has the power to help people be kinder people and make the world a better place. And so the why is stronger than the rejection, and they help you keep that front and center. So I'm hoping something happens soon. But I just have to, once that manuscript goes off to publishers, I'm working on something new just to keep moving forward always.
So how do you balance your everyday life and your writing life?
So I'm luckily, with the grant writing now, I'm working as an independent contractor, so I can work for the most part right from home, and on my own hours, which is absolutely wonderful. So I am most creative first thing in the morning. So I'm an early riser, and the first couple of hours are spent on the creative stuff, and then I continue on with the day after that.
Wow, I love that. I love the fact that you already know your schedule. I want to ask you another question about the book. How important was it for you to include the Bible verse in the book, like Luke 2:14?
I originally had Bible verses on almost every page because I thought it was, I wanted to show that it's not just the story, it's biblically based. Um, And the feedback I received was that it was distracting, that like it pulled you out of the story, which I can see that. I can see that that may have been the case. But I wanted at least one in there, and I thought it was a powerful way to end.
I love that. Do you ever think about maybe writing a companion, like for a teacher, a companion for the book?
So I do have on my website, which is my name, DebraWestgate-Silva.com. I do have some activities, including discussion points for parents and caregivers, and then another set for religious educators. And I do have more of the Bible verses in some of those discussion activities that were originally in the text.
Oh, I love that. So you really didn't go to waste. You really said, okay, I'm going to repurpose it and use it for that.
Yes, yeah. And I also I have a couple coloring pages that were developed from two of my favorite illustrations in the book. So they're available for to be printed out for kids to color. And then there's also some character cutouts if they wanted to make little like puppets to reenact the story. So there's some cute activities on there.
I love that. And I have to talk about the little guy that's sitting behind you because he's just so cute.
Thank you. I had talked about here, let me grab him for a minute. So I had wanted to look into getting stuffed animals of the characters and found out it was very cost prohibitive. So I said, well, at least I want one for myself. So a friend of the family made this. It's crocheted, and this is Donkey from the book. And he goes to some of the schools with me. He's gone to some of the fairs, and the kids recognize right away. Oh, that's that. He's on your cover, isn't he? So it works.
He's so cute, though. It's just like adorable. I didn't know it was crocheted. I could tell it was like, you know, it was a stuffed animal, but I didn't know it was crocheted. That just makes it so much more special, too.
It's cute. It's so cute. I love it.
Did you ask her to make it, or did she make it?
I did ask her to make it. She does a lot of like mermaids, but I'm not sure how many characters she actually does from books. But I mean, I think she did a wonderful job. You can find her on Instagram. It's Knots of Whimsy.
Knots of Whimsy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to tag her because that is the cutest thing ever.
She'll love that.
So our time is almost up. Before we talk about where people can find the book and where they can find you on social media and all this stuff, that's one last thing, one little nugget that you want to leave.
You know, I think it just I wrote it at a time when I wanted to get back to the true purpose of Christmas. And I think that we can do little things that make a big impact. And, you know, when I think back to Christmases when I was a kid, and I think all of us can say this, like, it's the time spent with people that we remember. It's not the perfect dinner or the cleanest house or the perfect gift. It's the time spent with people. And some of the best memories I have of Christmases are, you know, we would always make a birthday cake for baby Jesus on Christmas Eve. And that's just something I just think that was a little thing my mom did to always make us remember it's not all Santa and presents. Like this is why we celebrate. And we had a little, it was like a little nativity cake topper. And I used that very same little cake topper set with my sons when they were little, and I still do it now. I mean, it's the paint's almost worn off the little figurines at this point, but I love it. It's special, and I don't want to replace it. But you know, I just think little things like that, and then just taking more moments of quiet to reflect on what it really should be about. And that might be just, dimming the lights and reading a book by the Christmas tree lights to make it, a little bit different, a little bit special. But we just need more of those calm moments when we're reflecting on what it really is about. And that's what I'm hoping that my book will bring to families.
I was just gonna say that because my girls are older now. They're 20s through 27, so they're in their 20s. But honestly, I read this book and I reread it today, and I'm like, this is what we need as adults. I mean, I highly recommend this because when we grow up, we get so caught up in the rush, we forget about the wonder of Christmas when we were little. And so as an adult, this is a great reminder to say, hey, we need to get back to just the simple things.
Thank you. I love hearing that.
So now, where can we find you at?
So Bethlehem Barn is available on Amazon. And you can find out more about me, the book, and the activities I mentioned at my website, which is my name, www.debrawestgate-silva.com. And I am also on Facebook, Debra Westgate-Silva, children's book author, and am on Instagram, Deb Westgate-Silva.
Thank you so much, Debra, for coming on and for writing this cute, amazing little book. I'm so crazy about cows. And as soon as I said Barnyard, Bethlehem, yes, I want her on. I hadn't even read the book yet, but I knew that it was going to be an impact, and it did make an impact on me. And just thank you so much for writing the book. And guys, I highly recommend this. I actually have a friend who just had a baby. This will be his first Christmas. So I'm going to send her a copy for his first Christmas.
I love that. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And it was a lot of fun.
Guys, thanks again, Debra. Once again, guys, I will put everything in the show notes where you can find Debra, where you can find a book, also where you can find her friend who does the amazing crochet of the donkey. And we will see you on the next chat from the blog cabin. Be blessed. And most importantly, remember, keep chatting. Bye.